this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Presenting petitions, the Honourable Member from Bow River.
Hundreds of people in the community area of Langdon, they lost their post office more than a year ago, and everything they've done to get it back hasn't been successful. This is very difficult, particularly for seniors that have been redirected to 30 kilometers away to deal with parcels and mail and special issues that come with post office. So for the people in Langdon area, we need a post office in this community for thousands of people, and they'd like it now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Mission Maskey, Fraser Valley.
Fraser Canyon, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last spring this government made legislative changes to allow Health Canada to regulate natural health supplements, the same as therapeutic synthetic drugs, which will mean substantive new fees on the import, manufacturing, and sale of things like vitamins, protein powders, and even fluoride-free toothpaste. Constituents in my riding who rely on natural health products daily are concerned that these changes will result in the products they use being removed from Canadian store shelves. They are calling on this government to stop these changes and to work with the industry on issues such as labeling and fees. Save our supplements, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present a petition signed by Canadians urging Parliament to pass Bill S-281, or Brian's Bill, named in honour of the late Brian Olisic, who was brutally murdered by a co-worker at the University of Alberta. The petitioners are calling more specifically for Parliament to amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act such that convicted murderers would not be able to apply year after serving their minimum sentence, and that they would only be able to apply for parole at the time of their automatic review.
The Honourable Member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present a petition signed by the great people of Windsor West and Windsor-Tecumseh, London West, London North Centre, and London Fanshawe, calling on the House of Commons to immediately repeal the new regulatory constraints on natural health products passed last year that millions of Canadians rely upon, that has since affected their medical freedom of choice and affordability.
The Honourable Member from Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and as always, it's an honour to be able to stand in this place and present a petition on behalf of numerous Canadians that, in this petition, ask the House of Commons to reaffirm its support for Ukraine and fighting for their freedom and its people around the world so that they can defeat the illegal invasion perpetrated by Vladimir Putin. However, they also express their disappointment that the Government of Canada would choose to, for the first time in history, include a carbon tax in a new free trade agreement. Mr. Speaker, it is an honour to present this petition and to acknowledge that these Canadians who have signed it ask that the government remove the provisions in the Ukraine Free Trade Agreement that force a carbon tax upon the people of Ukraine and Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from North Island, Powell River.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to be in the House to table this petition from Brooklyn Elementary School and Highland Secondary School. They signed this petition, and what they're most concerned about is prioritizing funding for a national school food program. They want to see it implemented as soon as fall 2024. They have a lot of concerns about young people going hungry at school, and they hope to see this dealt with and have a federal component immediately. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Haldeman, Norfolk.
I rise to present a petition that has been signed by Canadians across this country. These petitioners believe that vulnerable Canadians with mental illness should receive suicide prevention counselling over medical assistance in dying. The petitioners are concerned about the lack of consensus among healthcare experts regarding what constitutes irremediable mental illness and the inadequate support for mental health of Canadians. As such, they're calling upon this House of Commons to cancel its plans to expand the eligibility of medical assistance in dying for those with mental illness.
Honourable Member from Esquimalt, Sanet Souk.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present e-petition 4666, signed by some 11,000 Canadians from every province and territory. This petition notes that despite legal progress made with the passage of Bill C-16 in 2017, transgender and gender-diverse people continue to be denied full equality and denied the safety and acceptance that every Canadian deserves. The signatories call on the Government of Canada to implement the 29 recommendations of the White Paper on the Status of Trans and Gender-Diverse People tabled in this House last June. Action to implement the recommendations of the White Paper would allow trans and gender-diverse people to live free from violence and hate and to have access to gender-affirming health care, access to housing, and most of all, freedom to live as their true and authentic selves. I want to thank the author of this petition, Faye Johnstone, trans activists, and the thousands of people who stood together in solidarity with transgender and gender-diverse people by signing this petition.
The honourable member from Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to table a petition initiated by the folks at Transport Action Canada and signed by over 9,000 Canadians who are calling for a vibrant future for sustainable, affordable, safe, and public passenger rail in this country. The petitioners call on this government to pass my bill, the Rail Passenger Priority Act, to invest in the replacement of Via Rail's long-distance fleet, to put riders and workers on the board of Via Rail, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that high-frequency rail on the Windsor to Quebec corridor is procured publicly, built publicly, operated publicly, in the public interest for the good of all Canadians. They call for government leadership and for a vibrant future for passenger rail, and I hope, Mr. Speaker, that this government will deliver just that. Thank you.
The honourable member from Vancouver East.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table petition E4731, signed by 12,429 people across Canada. The petitioner notes that Canadian citizens and permanent residents have beloved family members in Gaza, and that under existing policy, these family members are subject to visa application requirements that are often impossible to meet due to limited working bureaucracy infrastructure inside Gaza and or their inability to travel to Canada to a Canada visa office. They further know that current policy only allows for children and spouses to be sponsored for permanent residency, excluding siblings, parents, and grandparents. And Canada has demonstrated an ability to facilitate visa-less travel at time of departure for spouses and children from Gaza to Canada. And Canada has supported the travel and reunification of families in international crises before, such as the Canada-Ukraine authorization for emergency travel and permanent residence policy for Ukrainian nationals with family members in Canada, including siblings, children, parents, grandparents, and spouses, and that the Canadian government can update its policies governing eligibility for travel and residency as it chooses. So therefore, the petitioners are calling for the government that the citizens and residents of Canada call on the government of Canada to immediately create direct pathways for emergency travel of Palestinians to Canada and establish a policy for permanent residence for immediate and extended Palestinian family members in Canada.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member from Waterloo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's always an honour and privilege to rise on behalf of the good people of the riding of Waterloo, and I bring two petitions that people from within the riding of Waterloo and the region of Waterloo have signed. They bring to the attention of this House that tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed over the last over 3 months, 200 days now. They are calling on the House of Commons and Parliament assembled to support the case that South Africa has brought forward to the ICJ. They are asking the House to acknowledge the deliberate starvation of the civilian population of water, food, and electricity amounts to the collective punishment, which we know is clearly forbidden under international humanitarian law. They are asking the people assembled in this Parliament to uphold our responsibility to prevent and punish genocide wherever it occurs, and to see the case that South Africa has brought forward help to bring an end to the killing that is taking place. The second petition, similarly, Mr. Speaker, calls on the House of Commons and Parliament assembled to demand an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Palestine conflict. They're asking that the blockades be lifted so that there is a humanitarian corridor and that emergency and humanitarian intervention can be available for these people. They go further to make sure that they're asking us to make sure all necessary measures are taken to protect civilians, both Israelis and Palestinians, and to help foster a climate conducive to building a lasting peace in the Middle East. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Esquimalt, Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising to present a petition that's of keen concern of residents of Saanich, Gulf Islands. In fact, it's a petition that other petitioners within the riding have had me present to the government and the Parliament assembled before. It's not an unfamiliar issue, I know, to members on all sides of this House, and that's the crisis and the absence of family doctors, specifically to Saanich, Gulf Islands, where we see that there are, of course, of the 92% of physicians across Canada, 92% work in urban areas. Areas such as Saanich, Gulf Islands have that 8% left to cover the needs of constituents. Within Victoria and Sydney, for example, the average wait time at a walk-in clinic is between 92 and 180 minutes. I certainly have experienced recently the absence of a family doctor and the impact it's had on my life. The petitioner specifically, recognizing that this is not solely one jurisdiction's exclusive responsibility, they call on the House of Commons and Parliament to work with the provinces and territories to come to a holistic and fair solution to Canada's current family doctor shortage crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to present a petition that has been signed by the residents of Haldimand, Norfolk. These petitioners are concerned about the legislative and regulatory changes that have significantly affected the natural health products industry. The petitioners are concerned the new regulations will cause consumer prices to skyrocket and consumer choices to plummet at a time when inflation is at record high. As such, they're calling upon this government, upon the Minister of Health, to adjust the regulations and reduce the cost to the industry.